Hey everybody. Now, this is a topic I normally don't talk about much, but I decided to go ahead and get to it now. I talked about the best in movies I've seen, but let's go ahead and take a look at the worst. The movies I like the least. My most hated stuff. That's what we're going to be doing today. Today, we are going to be looking past each year of my existence, all the way back from 2005, come all the way up to 2022, and look at the worst movie of each year, from my experience. From each year, I'll talk about which movie per each year is my least favorite. Remember when I did that video of my favorite movie per year? It's just basically that, except it's my least favorite per year. And we're only going up to 2005, the year I was born, as that's going to be good enough for the length of this video. And each year is my all-time least favorite movie, because I hate it the most from that year, that it just bothers me. And maybe some of these I don't hate entirely as much as you might, or maybe you just don't know about it, but yeah, it's my opinion. This is it. You get the idea. My least favorite movie per year up to 2005. For 2005 is Son of the Mask, the sequel to the original Mask movie starring Jim Carrey, but now there's no Jim Carrey. It's Jamie Kennedy, a different character who puts on the mask and is not funny on it. You've heard me talk about this movie before. You know how I feel about it. It's a terrible sequel with none of the cast returning. It's just new characters who don't make the movie any more interesting or funny. It's all supposed to be a family film, but it looks even scarier now. It's just all weird cartoon crap. I know the first Mask movie was all about cartoon crap, but the good kind. The kind of cartoon crap that only Jim Carrey could pull off. It was a unique idea and was so fun. This time, it's just new characters that don't have any interest. They just confuse you, annoy you, bother you. Everything about this movie bothers me. If they're going to make a sequel to The Mask, you gotta have Jim Carrey in the role. And maybe some of the other stars too. But when you replace them all with these guys, nothing good's going to come out of it. This just sucked. Garfield, what can I say? It's a comic book series that was somewhat interesting. I only read the comics and watched the cartoons a few times. The movies I did watch and kind of regret them. In fact, Bill Murray himself, who voices Garfield, regret him. Seriously, why would Bill Murray do this? Why would someone who's so hilarious pull off a role that comes off as so unfunny and not interesting? Well, I'll tell you why. When the first Garfield came out, the only reason Bill Murray did it was because he thought that Joe Cohen, who produced it, was actually Joe Cohen, one of the Coen brothers, who made Big Lebowski or Fargo. He thought that it was them, but instead it was Joe Cohen, who produced a bunch of kid films. And so he thought that was him, so he signed to do it, but then he realized it was Garfield, and he had no choice. So, poor man. These movies were not fun. The first one wasn't fun, and this one, I think, is even worse, because it's just even more ridiculous, weird garbage. It's not something pretty. And speaking of cartoons turning to live action weirdness, there's this one, Alvin and the Chipmunks. It's so weird, just so unnecessary. I don't know. I don't know what else I can say about it. I haven't already said about Garfield. It's a cartoon series that I did not really watch much. I basically was introduced to these weirdos in the form of a movie, and boy, do I regret it. Now I see them as a movie, I think I should probably watch them as a cartoon to see what their shine was originally. Because these movies just really disturb me. Okay, look, even looking at the poster you can get disturbed. I feel terrified. The movie isn't really terrifying, it's just not funny. It's these characters making all the cliche family friendly jokes you can find in a kid's movie, which do not work. They are not funny at all. This movie has bad acting, bad CGI for the most part, and just tries to be as unfaithful as it can. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. This movie bothers me a lot. You've heard me talk about it before. You know the drill. Disaster movie is the worst movie I have ever seen. I hate this movie the most out of any film I've ever seen. You know I've said that, okay? It's kind of obvious. Everything about this movie, trying to parody disaster films while doing that, adding tons of random characters who were popular at the time, trying to just throw them in for the sake of being funny when it comes off as stupid and not funny. I've said enough. I really don't think there's much else I could say about Disaster Movie that I haven't already said. This movie is garbage. I do not really want to talk about it anymore. Now, I controversially don't really watch anime. Yeah, I know that might upset a lot of people, but yeah. I don't hate anime, I'm not against it. I just don't really find that something I enjoy of watching. I'm more into the animation style that I see in some of the American stuff. Not trying to be racist or anything. I appreciate anime. I just don't really enjoy watching it much. Dragon Ball Evolution is still a terrible movie. It tries to adapt from the iconic Dragon Ball series by Americanizing it, making the main character a teen boy who is all cool and whatnot, having terrible CGI, some weird designs, disturbingly ugly, unnecessary, gross, stupid, cheesy stuff. Even though I'm not a fan of Dragon Ball like other people are, I still think this movie is a huge disgrace. I hate it, okay? I had to take a glimpse and it just sucks. And believe me, I feel like instead of actually trying to be faithful to the adaptation, it just tries to feel like some sort of anime style mix of Karate Kid or Spider Man. And that's not something you should see from Dragon Ball. It has to be unique, not every cliche you've seen from those movies. Look, I know I've already upset you all by saying I'm not a fan of anime, but look, I respect anime. It's cool. It's just not my type. And neither is this movie. But this movie's no one's type. Now, this movie is actually so bad it's hilarious. However, while most people would like to adore a movie and talk praisingly of it for how badly hilarious it is, I'm one of those people who wants to take films seriously. And for that case, Birdemic sucks balls. It's one of the worst movies I've seen. From considering how it's supposed to be a serious, iconic homage to the Hitchcock classic movie The Birds, it comes off as stupid with all the CGI effects that are used for the birds. The birds in this movie come off as not looking real at all. If you watch the movie, you can obviously see how fake and terrible the birds look. It's all just supposed to be similar to the birds, only this movie was made on a very, very low budget. But again, I'd like to take movies seriously. Or just take them the way they want to be taken. And this movie was trying to be taken as a fun, serious way, but it comes off as so hilariously awful. For that reason, though, since it is unintentionally hilarious, I still think I should hate it on it. You heard me talk about Jack and Jill. It's Adam Sandler at his worst, okay? You can say all you want about Sandler. I seem to have a lot of kids at my school seem to praise Adam Sandler all the time. But really, just because Adam Sandler could be funny at times doesn't mean everything from him is funny. And Jack and Jill is a perfect example. Him playing one dude and playing a woman, yeah, no. It doesn't work. It bothers me a lot. I don't care how many people want to praise Sandler for his hilariousness. He cannot be funny all the time. There are many times where he comes off as unfunny and just not amusing. And again, it's the best example would be this movie. I have already talked about how bad it is, the comedy coming from all the fart jokes and Adam Sandler trying to sound like a woman and be hilarious, but it comes off as super annoying, is what this movie does. Adam Sandler's hilarious every movie he's in. No, he's hilarious in some movies. But a majority of them from the time were just not for him. Not good. Now this is the worst animated movie of all time. I haven't talked about it yet. Let me go ahead and explain. Foodfight, starring some big actors like Charlie Sheen, Hilary Duff, Christopher Lloyd even. This movie is an animated Wreck-It Ralph about food icons. However, not only are the people you see on this poster, like Starkist Tuna or the Twinkie guy or Butter, they aren't even big roles in the movie. They're only there for cameos. The main characters are made up people who are not anything interesting. The animation in this movie was made in a horrible budget. It's god awful. Some of the worst animation you could see. And the story is all sorts of confusing crap. The comedy does not come off as funny. And even if this poster looks charming enough, the actual movie is ugly to look at. And these icons do not have good attention. Their appearances in the movie are very brief. So yeah, everything you see on this poster is false advertising for the actual movie. Smurfs, they were a cartoon from the past. I watched sort of it. I was mostly more familiar with how much the Smurfs sold as toys and whatever. I watched 1% of the cartoon. But unfortunately, I was introduced to it more with the movies. The first Smurfs movie bothered me for throwing any Smurfs into a Neil Patrick Harris story, and this one kind of does that too. Although I guess I could say this one sort of does a little more to focus on a story. It still sucks. The Smurfs still are annoying. The idea still does not come off as something I want to see from movie based on a cartoon that's just trying to sell out to people. Like, this is literally just a sellout. Every movie based on a cartoon is a sellout. There could be one out there that is good, but for the most part, movies like this, they're sellouts. This one's a sellout, okay? These Smurfs just are not something interesting. The movie doesn't have anything interesting. It's just trying to sell the toys well. The Hunt for Red October, the first in the Jack Ryan series, was good. Alec Baldwin can do a good job as Jack Ryan. Patriot Games and Career Present Danger were pretty good as well, with Harrison Ford taking on the role in such a great way, because, we all know how great Harrison Ford can be. There was The Sum of All Fears with George Clooney taking over the role, and I was kind of mixed on that. It was okay, maybe. But Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit, I personally think Chris Pine is not the right choice for Jack Ryan. Why? He makes him a teen. In this movie, Jack Ryan is a teen type. He is someone who's a younger person. He seems to be that one fun teen who fights crime or whatever. And no, I can't say I like it. I need to watch more movies of 2014 to hate on some more, but for now, this was the worst one I've seen from that year. Because, man, Chris Pine is not good at Jack Ryan. I personally think this movie has no good to it. It's not the worst. I don't despise it. I just don't really love it. Now, this might come off as a surprise, but I actually did grow up somewhat with the Gem cartoons. Yeah, I know it's a weird cartoon to focus on out of all of them I've talked about, but yeah, there was a bit of the cartoon I actually did watch as a child. I didn't call it a fan favorite. I watched it. When I heard about this movie, I was like, what the hell? This movie does the worst job at adapting the real girl Gretel into life. Now all these characters are teen stars of the modern generation. It's Gen Z Jim and the holograms, and that's not a good thing. Okay, there's nothing about this movie that can connect with the cartoon. It tries to just be more Gen Z style stuff, like something you see out of a Taylor Swift thing or whatever. And yeah, I don't know why I would watch something like that, but I did, and I regret every bit of it. Thankfully, this movie was trying to sub a sequel but didn't. It's most movies that try to sub a sequel but fail because they failed. Another terrible animated movie, Norman the North. Well, not as bad as Foodfight. This movie still is annoying and stupid. We have Rob Schneider in the role, and once you hear his name, you know the movie you're watching is not going to come off as funny in any way. Yeah, I know, Rob Schneider's not funny, I'm sorry. He's not funny at all. Norman the North is animated in such a creepy fashion. Not as bad as Foodfight, but the animation in this movie was trying to go for a Despicable Me style, but it comes off as... It just doesn't come off as appealing in this way. This character is a polar bear who comes to the real world. It's all that crap you've seen before. But with Rob Schneider's terrible comedy and all the other terrible comedy this movie produces, I don't think there's much else I can say. Norman the North is a huge disaster, with just from how poorly humor there is, and yeah, there's nothing else I could say. It's just not a good comedy. And yet here's another animated movie that people shouldn't know about. The Emoji Movie. This movie is, yeah, everyone knows about it. It sucks. This movie sucks hard, okay? It's still not as bad as Foodfight, maybe even not as bad as Norman the North. But it still is terrible. This movie is hugely criticized for how terribly stupid it is. It's doing that thing where it's taking some iconic part from your childhood or whatever and making it a movie. That's what it's doing. The Emoji Movie. Oh, how great. We're taking emojis and giving them a movie. I am so terrible with this. That movie just was completely lambasted even before it came out. No words. Everyone hates it. It's horrible. The huge assembled cast they got, people like Patrick Stewart or I don't know. Why all these people? Why? Why this movie? It's just, there's nothing else I could say. It's god terrible. God forbid. Another animated movie. This one coming from the same company, Sony Animation. Sony Animation has been going on a downfall, really. Hotel Transylvania 1 was somewhat good. Hotel Transylvania 2 was somewhat mixed. Hotel Transylvania 3, in my opinion at least, is horrible. I actually really hated this movie. Yeah, I know, I don't want to come on terrible. I know there's people out there who can at least enjoy for some bits, but personally, I actually really hated this film. It dumbed down on the comedy. It dumbed down on basically everything. It's just dumbed down. Sony Animation has lost their style. No good come out of it.
But then Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out and we completely forgot about these crappy movies. Yeah, you know, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out this year. After that came out, we all just started praising Sony Animation. So thankfully that movie was able to make us forget about all these other crappy movies. But still, I have to be reminded of it for this video. Thank you, Spider-Man. You saved me from this terrible monstrosity. Cats. Just Cats, okay? What else can I say? It's Cats. Cats is a musical, but now it's a movie with a assembled cast of big stars like Idris Elba, Taylor Swift, Ian McKellen, Judi Dench, Jason Derulo, Jennifer Hudson, Rebel Wilson. It's This movie was made by the guys who made The King's Speech, which was an Oscar winner. But now this movie, Cats, made us completely forget who it came from. Cats is the CGI is this movie makes you want to vomit, and I did vomit. Okay, basically every movie about cats makes you want to vomit, doesn't it? It's What else can I say? It's Cats. The CGI, the choreograph, everything about this movie. I can't even say anything else. It's so bad I don't even want to talk about it. It's Cats, people. Gretel and Hansel was a weird choice, but 2020 was a year where not many movies were releasing to our fame. It was all this came out, this came out. 2020 was some year. So I didn't see enough movies to say that this would be the worst one of that year. But from what I did watch in 2020, this one did suck the hardest from what I've seen. It was released before the whole 2020 crap started to happen, but honestly, I feel like this movie would have worked better from during those ages. Gretel and Hansel is a horror version of Hansel and Gretel because screw the movie Witch Hunters, which didn't exist apparently. This time it's all I don't even remember much to what I can say. It's weird. This movie's just weird. It's random. It's stupid. It's too cheesy. Okay, it's a cheesy horror film. Horror movies can be cheesy a lot of times, and this one is no exception. Cheesy Hansel and Gretel. Home Alone is one of the funniest movies I've seen for my life. Home Alone 2 can compare pretty well. Home Alone 3, I personally sort of really hate it. Home Alone 4, that movie pisses me off. Home Alone 5 pisses me off too. And here's this one, Home Alone 6, Home Sweet Home Alone, with nothing of interest. It just sucks. It's probably the worst Home Alone sequel there is. I guess you could say that Home Alone 4 and 5 probably don't count much. They're just TV films, but from Home Alone 3 and 2 and whatever, Home Alone 3 was bad, but it wasn't awful compared to this. This movie sucks hard. It's Home Sweet Home Alone is just this new kid who comes off as an actual villain rather than being the good kind of villain. So, what joy can come out of this? This movie just tries to take all happiness and tear it apart, ruin Christmas for us. Thank you, Home Alone. You ruined Christmas for me. I should probably just go ahead and watch the original Home Alone and be reminded that these sequels should not exist. And from 2022, last year, I actually did not see too many terrible movies. I did see Texas Chainsaw Massacre, this film on Netflix, which I personally think was probably the worst one from what I've seen. It was a new version of the classic iconic Texas Chainsaw story. But now we have new cast, which is essentially a move Gen Z style. It's all Texas Chainsaw stuff you remember from the 70s or whatever, all Gen Z'd up. Yep, we have Gen Z now, and boy, do Gen Z know how to ruin a good movie. This movie just, I don't know. I've already talked about how bad it is. You get the point. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is, what did I say? Texas Chainsaw Massacre tries to revamp all the fun horror we remember, but comes off as not fun in any way. From the way the Gen Z characters in this movie, all the teens from this generation just ruin it with their fun style or whatever. It just makes this movie more annoying. It doesn't really help me enjoy. Maybe I'm just too against Gen Z, but they seem to like to ruin all sorts of classics we remember.
So now you know. There's a good reason why I should not be talking about movies I hate. I should just go ahead and go back to talking about movies that I do love. I'll just go ahead and continue with the favorites, not the least favorites. Because I rushed for this video, because I did not want to say much about the least favorites. Not because I don't remember them, but because I don't want to remember them. So please, I don't want to talk about my least favorites anymore. I'm just going to go back talking about the ones that are my favorite, because these are some that I want to forget, and I hope you all will too. Please, wash your brains out. Go watch some great movies. Go be reminded of what wasn't something that you hated. And please tell me what you like and what you hate is fair, because we all have those movies that we hate but everyone else loves. I feel like there are people out there who hate a movie everyone else loves, yet they want to hate it like it is terrible overall. I don't know. I'll just go.